everyone. In this video, we are going to determine the inverse of a rational function, and this is the third part. I will put the link of the first and second part in the description box below. Let's take this first example right here. Find the inverse of this function f of x is equal to 5x over x plus 3. In order to find the inverse of any function, we need to follow some steps. The first step is to replace f of x with y. So in this problem right here, I can go ahead and rewrite this. After we're done with the first step, we're ready to move on to the second step. Replace every x with y and replace every y with x and solve for y. So in this case right here, so pretty much the y becomes an x, the x becomes the y. And then part of this step is to solve for y by itself. So we need to have y isolated by itself here. So I'm going to show you the first method of how we can isolate the y. That method is we use the inverse of division. So we are going to multiply this side by y plus 3. So that if we multiply y plus 3 to both sides, we can cross this out. So they get crossed out. So we are left with... And then from here, we are supposed to solve for y by itself. So what are we going to do is we can distribute the x to both terms inside the parentheses. So we will use the distributive property. So we distribute the x to the 3 and to the y. So our equation would come out y times x is xy. And then that is plus 3 times x is 3x is equal to 5y. So then we can go ahead and simplify this. Again, we want y by itself isolated in one of the sides of the equation. So then we can go ahead. I'm just going to rewrite that up here. Okay, so what are we going to do is we are going to subtract 5y from both sides because we want the y by itself on one of the sides. So I'm going to subtract 5y right here. So minus 5y and minus 5y. So that from here we can go ahead and cross the 5y and 5y. So we're left with xy plus 3x minus 5y is equals to 0 because that's we subtracted the 5y and 5y, so that gives us 0. Now we already have the y on the same side, but then we still have an x here, which is a different term. So then I can go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides minus 3x. So then we are left with xy minus 5y is equal to negative 3x. And we want y by itself. So we will use the distributive property backwards. So then I can go ahead and isolate the y here times that would be x minus 5. So again, this is distributive backwards. So if I multiply y times x is xy, y times negative 5 is negative 5y. So that I can have y by itself because the y here is mixed up with these two terms. So then that is equal to negative 3x. So then we can divide both sides by x minus 5 so that we are left with y. So I'm going to divide this by x minus 5, and then I will divide this by x minus 5, so we can cross this out. We are left with, that's going to be y is equal to negative 3x over x minus 5. So pretty much we already have isolated y by itself. Now, the next step that we are going to do is to replace y of the equation solved in step 2 with f negative 1 of x. And that would be the notation for the inverse. So then we can go ahead and write f of negative 1 of x is equal to negative 3x over x minus 5. And this is the inverse of this function right here. Okay, at this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Again, the first step is to replace f of x with y. So this will become a y. Now we're ready to move on to the second step. Replace every x with y and every y with x and solve for y. So this becomes... So then what are we going to do next is, again, we isolate y by itself. The method that I showed you was undoing division. So I multiplied y plus 3 on both sides in the first example. Now I will show you another way of doing it. Either either method would still give us the same answer. So that method would be cross multiplication. So we remember that this one has an invisible denominator of 1. So then I can go ahead and cross multiply these two and these two. Okay, so once we cross multiply this, so these two gets partnered up, so that would be. So again, this is the second method using the cross multiplication. So then we can go ahead and distribute the x to both terms inside the parentheses. So this would come out. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and rewrite this up here. Okay, since we want y by itself, we're gonna put all the y's on one side. So I'm gonna subtract y from both sides minus y. So then this would come out, we can cross this out. So that's xy plus 5x minus y equals 0. So then we can go ahead and subtract, since this one doesn't have any y, so I'm just going to subtract 5x to both sides. Minus 5x minus 5x. So then we can go ahead and we're left with xy minus y is equal to negative 5x. We isolate y by itself. Using the distributive backwards, this would be x minus 1. So that if I multiply y times x is xy, y times negative 1 is negative y, and that is equal to negative 5x. So then from here, we can go ahead and divide both sides by x minus 1 because we want y by itself. So I'm going to divide this by x minus 1 and divide this by x minus 1. So then I can cross this out. So then I am left with y is equal to negative 5x over x minus 1. And once we got this, we're ready to move on to the third step. Replace the y of the equation solved in step 2 with f negative 1 of x. So then I can go ahead and write the inverse notation right here. F of negative 1 of x is equal to, I'm just going to copy all of these. So that would be negative 5x over x minus 1. And this is the inverse of this function right here. Did you get the same answers as this? Good. Perfect. If you found this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!